What is up, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Camera Junkie live stream. My name's Luis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie, where I remind you, you, to upgrade your skills before your gear. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Like I said, my name is Luis, and please be sure to introduce yourself into the chat so that you can get the nice Camera Junkie crew welcome. All right, let me put this up a bit because I'm enjoying the music just as you. And as tradition goes around here, the first thing that I always do is go ahead and check the chat. But before I do that, I'm gonna remind you to hit the like button because it's something that I forget to do all the time. So do that first, right? I even see a graphic when the thumbs up go up, so go ahead, hit that thumbs up, and let's go ahead and check the chat. All right, the first one that I got here is from Jim Mundy saying happy Saturday to all. How are you doing, sir? We also got Parker Jennings in the house saying hello to everyone. We have Paul, Mr. Moderator, saying hello to the fam and also saying hi to Parker Jennings and Jim. And we got Gretchen sneaking in here as well, saying hi to myself and to Aiden. Aiden, Gretchen says hi. God, I love that boy. Like, I am a very, very lucky individual to be able to hang out with my little guy as much as I do. I wouldn't change it for the world. But with that being said, look, Mr. Moderator also is mentioning it because I always forget. Don't forget to do that. Hit the thumbs up button. Yep. He's saying hi to Gretchen. Okay. Well, today's subject or topic is me testing out a mystery camera. So before I say which camera it is, I'm gonna go ahead and show it to you first. So if I've done this correct, this is the mystery camera, and now I have it set up that is actually behind my teleprompter setup. So if I were to go to like my overhead camera or my behind the scenes camera, you can't see what it is. It's hidden back here, so it's hanging out in the back skirt. So this is my main camera, and this is the mystery camera. Some of you might know exactly which camera it is, but I digress. this is the image that I'm getting from it. Now, going back to my behind the scenes, you can see a hot mess of cables going on around here right now, and it's because I had to kind of jerry rig everything and getting everything to work together. I actually added an extra camera. So from the traditional main camera, we have our mystery camera. Then we also have our secondary shot, our behind the scenes, and also our overhead. Now, with that being said, going back to it, I'm giving the mystery camera like the best treatment possible. So I'm literally trying to run it side by side with the A6100. So I'm doing the comparison of the image and of the 4K, and that's why I once again reference to this hot mess of cables because of what I actually did. Traditionally, I have my main camera, this one, and my side camera. This one? No, there we go, that one. So many buttons as my 4K images, right? So traditionally I have this lens here, or this camera setup, and this camera setup on the 4K cam links, and then everything else gets, you know, connected separately. My behind the scenes cam, that's an iPhone XR, as you can read right there, right? And the iPhone XR is connected just simply via lightning cable. So this is the image that you're getting from a standard ish, right? I got a high capacity long, you know, cable to be able to hang it and still have it connect, but it's still just a lightning cable, so nothing out of this world when it comes to the connection to it. And then my overhead shot here, this guy is connected directly via USB-C, as is said there, right? And the USB-C just gives me a direct connection, so that's what's giving it its video properties. So now I have the main camera, which is the A6100, and also the mystery camera connected with the Camlinks 4K. So they're both connected in that same manner, using the same device. They're both at ISO 800. They're both APS-C cameras. I have full frame lenses on both of these cameras. So on this one and on this one, this is a 16 millimeter f2.8. So it's pretty fast, you know, it's a pretty decent aperture for a 16 millimeter. And here, let me go back to it, I have my, what says right there, my Quantaray, and this one's like minimum aperture is 3.5 at 19 millimeters, which is how I have it right now. So f 3.5 at ISO 800, APS-C 4K, going into the Camlink 4K, so that the eCam could register it and use all of its, you know, like visual power, so to speak, all of its resolution goodness. And this camera here, I have it connected the same way, so I actually closed down the aperture even though it's a 2.8, and I have it running at the same 3.5. So full frame lens, 3.5 aperture setup, ISO 800, APS-C, and also connected via Camlink 4K, so that we can get all of that resolution goodness. So that's what we have set up right here, so that you can let me know. What was that? I like something on my nose there. Okay. So good enough that I can notice things on my nose, right? But to see which one you also prefer, right? Obviously, I know that I have my main setup here, right? And I really enjoy the colors, saturations, the way that I have it set up. But this also could do with it being kind of like this vintage lens. Now, oh, one thing I forgot to mention that I just read it there. This has the ProMIS, right? And traditionally, I have the Pro Mist here, but I took it off there because I have it on the main camera. So I took the Pro Mist from my secondary camera and I threw it onto the mystery camera. So it also has a Pro Mist 1/8, not the 1/4, but the one that I had over there is now on this lens as well. So Pro Mistified, right? And I want to see your opinion, what you guys think about this camera and pretty much the image out of it. Like there are some things that I really like about the camera, but it's completely different than what I'm used to running with my Sonys. So I want to see your opinion before we get into which camera it is that we're talking about and get into more details about it. So let me go ahead and check the chat again. I'm going to stay on this one. I'm going to hang out here. So let's see. Okay, the last one was Gretchen right away says, ooh, it's warm. Paul says it's a Polaroid. That one's up there. That's, where's my hand? That one right there at the end. That one. Polaroid land camera. It says quick autofocus on the mystery camera. Jeremy's in the house. How you doing, sir? I like the mystery look. I wonder why. That could be a pretty big hint. All right, so let's see here. But let's see. Says the skin tones are awesome. All right, well, I'm definitely going to have to check. Oh, I'm looking at comments over here. Apologies. And this is the camera in play. Okay. Skin tones are awesome. I'm definitely going to be looking at this live stream myself, as I do to a lot of my own content, because I'm my own worst critic. But I am going to just compare to see what the images do look like, because I'm interested. I have the ability to mess around with this camera, and I got quite a few lenses to play around with. Now, I also have a dummy battery connected to it, so I'm not worried about it shutting down. I am more worried about it overheating and shutting down, or in the other cases that I think, you know, when I'm having it run like this and it's actually not recording, that it's just, you know, doing an HDMI signal and I'm using it as a webcam, but I'm doing it through the HDMI and I'm not using the software that comes with it. It doesn't recognize it as a webcam. So it tends, I believe it shuts off after an hour. So we're going to be checking that as well to see exactly how long it lasts before the image just goes dark. Now, it's still on, it's still powered. There's no other issues. It's just like, it's almost like, oh, it's going to standby because I haven't been, you know, I'm not being utilized to record or anything. So I haven't gotten into the menus to see if that's something that I can disable, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Spatius in the house saying it's a Black Magic camera, question mark, saludos. Well, with a couple of guesses, and not to prolong this or drag it out too much, the mystery camera and information I should be able to bring up right here. Bam. And that's what we're dealing with as the mystery camera. Is the Canon R10, and I'm using the RF mount 16 millimeter, the full frame version, the f2.8 STM. And the STM is like the stepper transition motors, which is their like quiet motors that could be used for video, away from like their DSLR lenses that would make all sorts of noise, which let's not even get into that. because their lenses were never designed for video, and that's one of the big things that other companies like Sony has had the one up on them for a long time, that their first soirees into cameras were video cameras, were camcorders and things like that. So this is the Canon R10 RF mount, and yeah, I'm able to play with this camera for the foreseeable future, for like I should have my hands on it for like the next like 4 to 6 weeks. But I'm really gonna put it through its paces. I'm trying something new out, which is that I don't want to own the cameras, right? Because I'm trying to keep myself accountable in the way of like, I want to create the content and put my opinions out there, create that content, put it out, and then move on to the next one, right? Because I'll have another camera in a similar type situation in the future as well. So another thing about it is that I also have quite a few lenses that I get to play around with. So let me share that with you. Let me go grab them. Now, right now I'm using, oh, right here. Right now I'm using and my apologies because I have the teleprompter over here, so I'm reading the comments, which I'm doing the thing that I don't like to do, which is like look over, right? But just my apologies ahead of time, because I'm already recognizing that this is the camera that's on, even though I'm reading comments over here. So I'm laughing right now because of Gretchen's comment. Okay, so let me see. Jeremy says Canon R5 Mark II. He goes, ooh, so close. This is the one that made me laugh. I'm sorry. I'm just over here reading. So I feel so proud of Lewis and walking into the Canon world. You know, I used to be a Canonite. You know, that's what I used to rock before I moved to Sony. But when I wanted to create video content for these types of platforms and to better advertise my business, I knew that my photography cameras weren't going to hold up to the bill. And that's when it was a transition. But actually, you know, to show you right back here, I go back to it. This is a Canon lens right here, the Quanta Ray, and I have it with the Meta Bones adapter. Now, that Meta Bones adapter is actually what allowed me to transition from my Canon EF to Sony cameras. And it was because I actually had gotten my hands on, as a camera junkie, just through a like kind of no-brainer deal that I found on OfferUp, I got my hands on a Sony NEX5 camera. Now, it didn't have a viewfinder, or it did, but it was mounted on top, kind of like an additional accessory. Wasn't the greatest. Came with the kit lens, so that also wasn't the greatest, especially back then. But it was good for video. But the batteries, being the NPFW 50s, those, you know, for their APS-C cameras, they would just, especially those cameras, let me clarify myself, those cameras were not the best at utilizing that power source, but that was the batteries that Sony had. So those cameras would drain those small batteries extremely fast, and it was only until we got the A6000 series where the cameras themselves started being efficient enough electrically to be able to use them more often, which then gained them in popularity because people were able to use these cameras more. But instead of falling down that rabbit hole, the EF adapter mount was what allowed me to get my hands on an A6000. I used the lens from my NEX5
right? And I threw that onto the E mount and took a few photos, and I was not happy with the results. It just wasn't. And I was like, all the hype behind this camera, and I don't see it. And it was because I wasn't putting appropriate glass. When I got my hands on the Metabones adapter, I then said, okay, now I have like the entire plethora of my Canon lenses available for this Sony camera, and it only took one, and it was my favorite, Canon lens to that point, which was my 50 millimeter f1.4, right? Not the f1.2, super expensive. This was still a plastic build, but it was a high enough or fast enough prime, and that was just an amazing lens. It was their gold series, I believe, and still just an amazing lens, made for photography, not great for video because the autofocus makes noise like no other. But I digress. That the images that I got with my A6000 using the Canon 50 millimeter f1.4 were phenomenal. It was just like an amazing combination, and it just made me realize that Canon's glass was that much more superior, but the cameras and the features themselves, Sony was running away with it. And with the Metabones adapter, I was able to get the best of both worlds and utilize the system, and then slowly start dabbling into the lenses that Sony did provide, their higher end stuff, like the one that sold me. And I was just like, okay, this does it, because it basically replaced my 50 millimeter from Sony. The f1.4 was actually the Zeiss 55 millimeter f1.8, and even at 1.8 kind of being a not as fast, not so fast but not as fast, I could run that wide open at 1.8 all day anywhere, and the images are stupid sharp, amazing, and they have a similar like warmth and quality to that glass, that I was just like, this is it. This allows me to move on. And then slowly but surely, you know, the infection increased, so to speak. But with that being said, let's go to the overhead shot. Let's move some of this stuff over my nose. And these things are the best. These Vicks inhalers. Let's see if we can get it. These things are amazing. All right. That helps with my nasal congestion right now. Okay. Lenses that we got for the R10 to mess around with. Okay. Basically, we got the entire like spectrum, so to speak, the entire range. Let's see. First off, right? We have the RF 10 to 18. Like these are these little pancake lenses. Well, not really pancake, but similar. Very small, right? It's a 10 to 18. Come on, buddy. Oh, I forgot to put you in. There we go. Product showcase mode. That's why we have you as an overhead camera. All right. So this is the 10 to 18. And it's very compact, but it's in a closed position, so it's pretty cool that you have to kind of unlock it, and then you get to the 10 millimeter. Excuse me. That deserves a drink. And we continue. Okay, so this, like I was saying, you have to kind of unlock it. Once you do so, you have your 10 millimeters, and you continue to rotate all the way to 18. Now, it's also a variable aperture, and it's like kind of not the fastest, 4.5 to 6.3, but it's also an STM, so good for video. Right? And now if you're doing video and you're all the way at 10 at 4.3 outside, it's actually not the worst. and it's pretty compact. So interesting, but you know, a nice little compact lens. But we start at 10 millimeters, and this one goes all the way to 18. The next lens that we have available is the continuation, right? We're going from 18 to 45. So now basically works the same way, where you kind of have to unlock the lens, kind of make it easier to travel with, you know, because in the bag they fit amazingly, especially because they're able to break down this way. And once it's in use, it's not a problem to actually have, you know, your barrel extend outward like that. So we go here from 18, and now we have the range to 45, and we're dealing with similar type of actually the same exact aperture in this range, starting at 4.5 at the 18 millimeter and 6.3 at the 45. Once again, STM motors, so good for video, right? That good is like meaning that they're silent, so the lenses themselves are not going to make any noises that will be picked up by the internal microphones of this camera. All right, the next one, it's a little bit of a miss, so to speak, right? But it's kind of the continuation, the 55 to 210. And this is just more of like a standard, you know, zoom lens. Sony has one that's very similar to this. Not sure if it's the same exact range. Actually, I think it is. But I digress. We're not talking about Sony today. Okay, so this is also what I have available. Once again, STM motors, right? Good for video. And the aperture is 5 to 7.1 in this range. So wide open at 55, we're at 5 in the aperture range at 5, and all the way at 210, we're at 7.1. So a nice, good zoom lens as far as, you know, adding to the kit. But that pretty much covers your entire range, right? With 3 lenses. It's almost like what they say, the Holy Trinity, right? So we have a 10 to 18, 18 to 45, and a 55 to 210. Now, that's amazing if that were to be it. But we also have another Canon RF lens here. This is the 18 to 150. So this guy, even though variable aperture, it starts at 3.5 and ends at 6.3. The range is broadened a lot more because all in one lens we have 18 to 150. So this could be an like all said and done lens for you, or to better said, you can basically just rock 2 lenses, the 10 to 18 if you want something wider, and then use the 18 to 150 for the majority of your zoom lens, you know, applications. So rocking around with these 2 lenses and this camera could give you all day results with photography and video. Now, right now, we're putting this camera through its paces as far as video goes, but not necessarily I would think that this would be its best case scenario. We have 4 lenses here that are great for video, but because there are such things as adapters, still got my hands on some old classics as well, like the EFS 24 millimeter STM stepper motor at f2.8. So this is a great prime lens, right? This is just a classic. I remember when I sold mine. And this one is been sought out for a long time in the Canon community because it is such a good video lens. So cool to have this bag just to mess around with. And then this is also another EFS lens because this is what we had available to compare. So this is exactly the predecessor to this 10 to 18 RF. This is the EFS 10 to 18. As you can see, not a lot of play when it comes to the zoom capability or the barrel stretching out so much, but it still has that range. So the cool part is that, like I mentioned, oh, dropping batteries, apology. We have this adapter that goes from RF to EF or EFS. So with that being said, I'll be able to throw this in combination, right? And you can see that the combination makes an even bigger difference with the height of what you're getting out of it. But I'll still be able to run a comparison of the old setup versus the new. So that's like pretty cool, especially like you could just run the same exact, like focal range on both of these. So that's really cool. And let me just double check. And wow, that's crazy. They're using the same aperture range. So they're both 4.5 to 5.6 in the same exact range. Actually, this is 4.5 to 6.3. I was gonna say, and just to clarify, if those numbers don't make the most sense to you, I would just expect this one to just be able to capture more light, because the element, right, the actual piece of glass that's there is just that much bigger. So it's just, physics, right? The bigger your bucket, the more water you can carry, the more capture or water you can capture, right? So that's the way cameras basically work, where they're just capturing light, and the bigger your bucket, the more light you can capture, the better your image will be. But that's what I have to mess around with for the foreseeable future, and that's what I'm really excited to get my hands around. And like I said, to hold myself accountable, this doesn't belong to me, so it's just on loan. And with that being said, I can't wait to just create some content around it and compare it to the kit that I'm constantly using. Actually, let's go back to it. So this is, once again, the EOS R10 with the 24. Oh yeah, because on top of everything that I just showed you, I'm still using it with the 24 millimeter. No, let me reverse it. The 16 millimeter f2.8 full frame lens, and it acts as an equivalent of like a 24 millimeter. Oh, we got overheating at 34 minutes. I thought it was just gonna be a battery thing or a regular thing. I'm like, 34 minutes. Okay, we clocked it. So there we go. 34 minutes. Okay, I was expecting a little more. And FYI, I do have the door open. Actually, like, it's off, so I'm just gonna disconnect it to show you. So I'll give you the behind the scenes cam, right? This is the HDMI. All right. Oh, there goes the mist filter. We have a disconnection of HDMI. But to show you that I had the door open so that it can just cool off as much as possible. But Stream Machines, they are not. And this is why, like I said, that I moved over to Sony. Right? I wanted to create more content around or with video. Oh, what did I just do? That did not sound good. Let me check. Audio's still okay. Is music still playing or just transitioning? Okay, yeah. Okay, we're good. All right, let's go back to it. Okay. Oh, I wish I would have had my thermometer. I have one of those laser thermometers that I could have just like gotten a number off the back to see exactly how hot the overheating was, so on and so forth. But I wasn't expecting that, especially with the dummy battery. Gotta be honest with you. I literally thought that the thing, and to give some credit, right? I did have the camera on, I believe, for like an hour ahead of time, and I believe that that was the only reason it shut off was because I wasn't utilizing it. But we clearly saw that it said, like, it didn't say like standby mode, or that it was like, a hibernation of some sort. No, it was overheating. This little guy got hot. But there are some cons, right? Obviously, we just kind of came across one, but positives. I'm really liking the RF mount. I like the size. It just, the size of the mount, I guess, like, I don't know, it feels good. Aesthetically, like, just looking at it, it looks good, because this little combination of the full frame 16 millimeter on this APS-C camera looks nice. And last but not least is that they've always felt great in the hand, and this is no different, right? This is like, it just works. I am already accustomed a bit to the Sony cameras having the button up top here. That the funniest thing for me was that I couldn't find the shutter button, right? And I'm like, where is it exactly, right? And then I came across this, which is actually what I was looking for, because I use my shutter button as my record button for my Sony cameras, and that was like the main feature on my FX30, which is like using the shutter as the record button. So that's what I use it for majorly anyway. But it has a record button on top here, so whenever I can't find the shutter, I kind of just remember, oh yeah, dedicated record button. But I literally just got my hands on this kit today, so it was just delivered today. I'm really excited, like I said, to spend a little time with it and mess around with it. And it's kind of like a sense of urgency, so to speak, because I know that it's not mine and that it's going back to its home. I'm gonna be carrying it around as much as possible. Like any little trip, I'm gonna make sure that this is a camera that I have in the car with me, so that I can test out these lenses. Just going from my experiences before, I like to do a lot of photography like from my car, right? So like whenever I'm doing a trip, just having the camera there, and if I see something, roll the camera down, the window down, and pull the camera out and take a shot, right? But sometimes you just take it from inside the car, and the tip, if you're shooting from inside the car, make sure that you're using a CPL filter, circular polarized filter, because what these cameras are tending to do now, because they're so good, is they will autofocus on the little piece of dirt on your windshield when you're trying to get a photo of something beyond it. So with the CPL filters, you'll be able to kind of adjust how the light is hitting the sensor and make your windshield invisible to the camera, so that it looks past it and just focuses on things on the outside. And they also give the can't get the words out today, excuse me, hold on. the clouds and the sky, CPLs tend to give them just an amazing look overall. So if you're taking, photos outside, always check into a CPL because they make things look nice. All right. So let's see where we're at here. The Daily Man is in the house. How you doing, Carlos? Thank you for taking the time and stopping by. John is also here saying, hey. Says the Nifty 50. It wasn't exactly the Nifty 50 because it wasn't the 1.8, the really fantastic plastic. It was, like I said, I think it was the Gold Series. Because it's not the L. That was the one with the red ring. But I keep looking up because it's in a camera bag around here somewhere. It's the one Canon lens, well, one of the ones that I couldn't get rid of. Johnny E is in the house. Johnny, I must have brought you with the power of my mind because I was thinking about you. I came across the note, right, that I had of the things that I needed to make for you, right? And I was like, make the list for Johnny. And what I did is that I gave Aiden the power of an iPad. And that kid does things with it that I didn't even know were possible, right? As all kids are. They explore things beyond the comprehensible. So I have him playing his little, like favorite game app, so to speak. And I also have a what's it called? It's kind of like an accessibility mode, right? Where it doesn't allow him to like kick out of the game, and I put like kind of like training wheels on the iPad, so it limits him to only be in that one game so that he doesn't like get out of the iPad and just start searching throughout all the different apps that are in iPads that are not for a little guy like him. So what happens is that somehow, okay, like somehow he's airdropping messages to me. He's sending people text messages. he's doing so much with the iPad, and I'm like, I've locked you into this application. How are you, like, he hacked this somehow? I can't even explain. And I wish I could ask, like, what did you do? How did you get here? No, man, it is freaking hilarious. So he's like, I'm over here working and he's airdropping, gibberish messages to me, to my computer, and I don't even know how he's sending them. Long story to explain that he took the note that I made in the notes and corrupted it. So the information that was behind it of what the list was supposed to be about, Aiden ate my homework, so to speak. So if you can please remind me what the list that I needed to make for you was, because if it was just the information from Podfest, I have that ready to go to send to you. But I'm fearing that there was something else, which is why I was going back to reference a note when I realized exactly what happened with Aiden. That was a long story long. Okay, so Gretchen says, Lewis, I'm excited to see how those RF APS-C lenses work for you. I have the equivalent of most of them in full frame, but I'm envious of those small sizes and lightweight. Yo, I'm super impressed with that, right? Gretchen, take a look at this. This is a small little bag, and all of that came in this bag. £6. £6, including the bag for everything. Is nuts. So I will definitely keep you in mind and let you know. Says you talked about during class. Exactly. That's why I didn't want to push that notion because I knew some of you knew already. And Gretchen was like, "Oh, I like the colors. I wonder why." Oh, so funny. Johnny saying, "Oh no," because of the perfect timing of the overheat. Gretchen says, "Has the R10 had the latest firmware upgrade? Overheating from the R5 was fixed with the firmware." I don't think so. I don't think so. Like I said, I just got my hands on it, but before I did anything to it, I was confirming that I had the ability to do that update. Because if the owner wanted to keep it, like outdated, so to speak, for a reason, I just didn't want to, kind of like step on anybody's toes. But I got the green light to do so, and I'll probably be doing that firmware update for like tomorrow, just so that I can mess around with it and put some time under the belt with it. Like this past week, I spent like the majority of the time with this guy, and oh my god, I'm not gonna, but oh, do I want to? Because oh my god, this thing is a monster. But we're talking Canon today, okay? So all right, mystery camera, see? And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like I just want to be able to do some some thoughts on this, mess around with it, see exactly how I like it, and then send it off. Because the one thing that still, and I was talking about it earlier today, is like the cameras that got away, right? And I'm looking for that Canon no, excuse me, the Nikon D90, right? And I saw one, and it's a 12 megapixel DSLR camera, no video functions, but that was the camera that I always said, if they would have molded my hand and said we're making a camera for this hand, it was that D90. I had the D200 or the 200D, excuse me. Yeah, because I think Canon is the one that does the letters in front of the number. So yes, it was the 200D, but the 90D. You might see that in the future, because I went on a whole kind of rabbit hole on used cameras and websites who sell used cameras earlier today, and there's a couple of what are they called, bookmarks on my Chrome for a couple of things out there. So okay, thank you, sir. Says send it in Discord. Yes, because I have that list already ready to go. It was the other stuff that I was like, that I know was like there was something else that I needed to do, and like I told you, man, Aiden, that should be on a t-shirt. Aiden ate my homework digitally. He took so many of my notes and jacked them up. But I digress. All right, so the Daily Man Carlos says Metabones transformed my EOS R for 4K. Love their speed booster and adapters. Yes, speed boosters are even that much better. For those of you who don't know, what I have is just an adapter, so it just allows the light and the type of lens to be connected or to pass through at the appropriate flange distance to the sensor so that they can communicate. It's almost like your old grandparent, you know what I'm saying, when they would look at the paper and they would have to put it at a certain distance so that they could focus it correctly. Well, that's basically what these adapters do. They take an old style type of lens, right, that's designed for a different type of camera where the flange is here, right, and the sensor's way back here, comparative to the mirrorless cameras now, where sensors right there, and the flange is just like pressed right on top of it, which is the advantage of mirrorless, right? You're removing a bunch of mechanics that are not necessarily need to be there anymore, and with that, you're able to compress or condense these systems and these setups that much smaller. But because these lenses are still great, or better said, like imagine getting yourself your hands on a set of L lenses, right? Which are the top of the line Canon lenses, but they're all EF full frame, right? But because that's not the latest and greatest and everything's moving to mirrorless, you can get yourself a good deal. Now, the quality of light that gets transmitted through these old Canon lenses is amazing, and that I refer back to what I was speaking to at the beginning of this live stream, which was my A6000 only came to like light or came to full power when I was able to put quality glass in front of it, which is why one of my sayings is glass before ass, right? Optics are always more important than the camera body. But when the camera bodies are being compared, that's what moved me over to Sony, because the glass, I was able to use whichever glass that I wanted on either system. I'm saying more so that I was able to use my Canon lenses on my Sony cameras, thus creating the Canon-y cameras, so to speak, right? The Canon Sony hybrids that I was using, and I was getting the best of both worlds: the image quality of the Canon glass with the functionality and, you know, ease of use and videography and everything, you know, video centric side of the mirrorless cameras that Sony was producing. And that's where, oh, I put it back in the sleeve. That's where this guy comes in, right? And it takes your newer mirrorless cameras and now adds the appropriate flange distance, right? You see, it's just a hole through, so that this camera effectively becomes the old school camera, the EF, and now you're able to just connect and now use the old lenses, the old L lenses, the good kit that you got for an amazing price, and get a spectacular image quality, while at the same time bringing it up to the 21st century, so to speak. Even though I know they were 21st century items, DSLRs, but kind of bringing it to 2024, so to speak, right? Bringing it up to date with the new, you know, functionality of mirrorless cameras and the autofocus features that are still available with these systems when you connect them together. So yeah, I'm really excited for this as well, because my favorite lens is an EFS lens. Well, it's not my favorite lens, but it's my photography's favorite lens, or my client in photography's favorite lens when I've used it, because I've always gotten the best results or the best feedback from it, because it's a vintage film only Canon lens. It's a 135 to 400, and when I get a nice portrait at 400, it is film-esque. But the reason why I was talking about this was because of Carlos's comment of the speed booster. So after I break all of that down, now to explain the speed booster is, imagine you wanted to get the full functionality of your full frame lenses, right? But condense them for a APS-C type of camera that you're using it. So what it does is basically takes a adapter just like so, and it adds a glass or an element in it that will reduce the focal image. So it will take the image that comes out of a full frame lens, right? So if it's a 16 millimeter like this one is, right on it, it will then kind of shrink it for the sensor that's applied to it, and it actually increases the speed of the light, so to speak. That's why it's called a speed booster. So let's say you were dealing with a full frame lens f2.8, right? It works the same way as a magnifying glass does, right? You know that if you have a magnifying glass, right, you can take the light from the sun and focus down to a point where you can start a fire, right? Because you're concentrating that light. So what would you say is brighter? Just the sun around it, or that small dot of concentrated light, right? That concentration will start a fire. Well, the speed booster kind of works the same way. It's taking all the light. So let's say you had a fast lens of a 2.8, right? And now it's going to, kind of focus it down to a smaller sensor, which in that focusing down, just like a magnifier, it kind of increases the light because it's taking all the light that's it's received and squishing it down, so the image becomes a lot brighter, thus making an APS-C camera even better in low light because it's concentrating that light better. So an f2.8 lens on a speed booster on an APS-C camera will effectively start working as a faster lens, like a 1.8, and this is just rough numbers, but just so that you can get that idea. And it also gives you the full range of 16 millimeters or whatever lens that you're using with it. For example, because I'm so used to the Sonys, the sensors, you can see it doesn't fill up that entire area, right? The piece of glass that's corresponding to it will cover a much bigger sensor, a full frame sensor, right? But because the sensor here is not full frame, it's just gonna kind of like pizza cut the sensor out of it and only use the center portion of that glass. Thus, this 16 millimeter effectively acts like a 24 millimeter when attached to an APS-C camera. So even though it says it's a 16 millimeter f2.8, it's acting more like a 24 millimeter f2.8, right? With the speed booster, you'd be able to attach this to that, right? And that boost that you're getting in light will now give you the full width of the 16 millimeters, effectively making this lens a lot wider, right? And brighter. So it's like double bonus when you're using the speed booster. That's why he says like it transformed his EOS R, because it does exactly that. Now, the EOS R is a full frame camera, but when you're shooting in video, it kind of makes itself an APS-C camera, right? So it's only utilizing the center of the sensor so that it won't overheat and do other things that Canon cameras seem to be prone to do. So with that being said, right, that utilization of the speed booster allows you to get the best, like I said, the best of both worlds. And when you're shooting in 4K in the APS-C, it will then boost the speed and the light output so that you can get a faster and a wider shot. So almost had a brain fart there. Ooh. All right, we got Randy coming in here as well. Says R10 does a better job than my Z30. Smaller size cameras are more prone to overheating. By the way, hi everyone. Scott also came in here saying what's up to the crew. How are you doing, sir? Paul's reminding everyone, if you haven't done so, hit the like button. It's highly appreciated. And Carlos says the decrease the aperture by 1 stop. Exactly, like the faster speed. So if it was, see, by 1 stop, that's amazing. So if you're like at a 1.8, it'll give you like effectively like a 1.4, I believe, or actually that would just be a third a stop. So it just depends on exactly how, but more or less, if you're decreasing your aperture by 1 stop, that's, like I said, just getting amazing functionality in low light situations, from glass that necessarily might not be the best in low light, but you can make the best of both worlds. So that's super cool. All right, and we're exactly at the hour, so you know what it is. Boom. Cities Gaw, channels that I think you should go and watch. And I need to pull this up to make sure that I had it because I restarted the computer. Oh, there we are. All right. Let's go back here. And then we hit this button. Bam. And then we hit that button. Bam. And we're right into it. This week's Cities Got is Ben Johnson. Now, if you haven't heard of Ben Johnson, let me be the first to introduce you to this amazing creator. I was first made privy of Mr. Ben Johnson when a friend of the channel and myself, Alicia Way from, Alicia Way the Third, and we live. He was actually doing a series on the Ecamm channel of live streaming pros. So he's been doing that. I think he's got like 2 or 3 seasons. But one of the seasons he had Mr. Ben Johnson on there, and I think he did an interview on his channel as well. So that's how I was made privy of him. But he's a really cool creator, and he falls into that kind of camera junkie niche, right? As you can see, he does a lot of content creation, but he says it the best. He goes, I make content for creators. So if you're looking to start doing this yourself or already doing it, this is somewhere, a resource that you can go and get a lot of great tips and advice, right? As you can see, he covers microphones, cameras, lightings, lenses. That's why I say he's a camera junkie. If you just look at this, on the bottom right hand corner right over here, right, this says monitor, audio charge, like that kit looks like something that I would do, hands down, right? But as you can see, he's Final Cut Pro editor, Sony ZV buyer's guide, giving you tips on YouTube shorts, lighting, 2 ways, 2 easy, 2 light setup for videos, right? So if you haven't heard of him and are interested in dabbling yourself or learning a bit more, I highly recommend you check out this week's Cities Golf, none other than Mr. Ben Johnson. Cool cat. All right, and that is this week's Cities Golf channels that I think you should go and watch. And we did it. This is episode 183. And if you're not familiar with it because this was your first time here, well, let me put you on some notice, right? I don't think I said that right. But anyways, put you on some game. I'm old. Sorry. If it's your first time here, let me put you on some game. This is episode 183. That is 183 consecutive weeks of the Camera Junkie live stream without skipping a beat. So that is officially, we're creeping up on what, 4 years? So that's over 3 years of week in, week out live streams. It's like, I'm saying it right now again, and I'm like, what? But that's exactly where we're at. We're on our way to 4 years consecutive. And I got to thank you for taking the time and hanging out here with me, because you are what makes this my favorite place to be every single week. So remember to hit the like button, because I always forget to say that. I want to give a special shout out to all of my community members or my channel members. The links are down in the description for my Fourth Wall site. So if you want to become one of those amazing people who support me directly and allow me to create this content and also be the best father that I can for the amazing miracle man who is Aiden, then you can find all that information in the description and in the links down below. But as always, take care of yourself and each other's. And I can't wait to see all of your smiling faces as we're going to do it all over again next week on the YouTube, on the Mr. Camera Junkie YouTube channel. So mark it on your calendars, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday night. You can count on me and the Camera Junkie crew to be here hanging out and having a great time. So that's it. We did it. Everyone, I can't wait to see you next Saturday as we do it all over again. I need to get some food, which could be part of the reason why the brain and the functionality is like, you know, like a clutch has been slipping a little bit today. But we also have a huge UFC card that I'm going to spend way too much time watching tonight. Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev, we have Sean Strickland, Paulo Costa, UFC 302, and I can't wait to do that now. So everyone, I love you, and I will see you next time. Talk to you.